is what everybody joins the game for, is what you want to destroy. If you destroy the enemy ancient, you win the game. But there's a lot of things in between you and that when the game just starts. The very first thing are the 3 towers. We have 3 towers protecting the barracks on each side. And the barracks are a very essential part of the game as well. It's something that you see in most MOBAs, this kind of concept. In Dota, when a barrack dies, it doesn't come back. It's dead forever, and it makes the creeps in that lane stronger for the rest of the game. And if you get all 3 sides, all 3, or I should say 6 barrack buildings, you get what's called mega creeps. These mega creeps are really, really strong. They're really rather strong, and usually it means that your throne's about to go down. It's gonna happen, it's almost inevitable. Couple lineups, given a couple items, can maybe hold, but it's really not where you wanna find yourself. And then there's, of course, another great objective in the game. It's Rosh. Roshan has also been integral to the Dota game for a decade, and he's had more layers added to him. He now doesn't just drop the Aegis of the Immortal and no longer just drops the cheese. He also starts dropping a refresher and an Aghanim shard from 3rd and onwards. I should say that it works like a 50-50 chance between the Aghanim and refresher shard on the 3rd one, and then on the 4th one, it can be anything. These objectives, they usually come in steps. There are some metas and some games where you straight manage to take a Rax very early in the game, but often it's built on top of each other. You take some of the outer towers, and you maybe even take the tier 3 before you attempt the Rax. You back off after reset, kill the shrines. Shrines are a new objective that also came a couple years ago. They're not as big. They're quite a big objective. It's still a place where people can teleport to, but grabbing the tier 3 tower or a set of racks much bigger than ever taking the shrine. That being said, taking the barracks can often be quite challenging, easier said than done. A lot of lineups nowadays have a lot of high ground defense, and this low ground, high ground thing is very real in Dota. It's not just Star Wars. You definitely want to find yourself on the high ground for a multitude of reasons. It's a bit about travel time, but it's mostly to do about vision. If you're on the high ground, it's very hard for the enemy to get vision that you cannot control or get rid of. And you just seem to control the team fight much better from the high ground. Granted this and a couple other things. There's also a mischance and other small stuff. But I have a really nice example of what a high ground defense can look like and what is a successful and a not so successful high ground offense. This was a game that we also had at TI8. It's our first main stage game against VCJ. And it was a game that got rather closer than we would have liked to see it. But we have some of the really nice high ground defense heroes. Something that if you play Dota and you think about Lina, Viren, and Zeus, you definitely see that it might be a problem straight up going into this. They have very long range spells. These long range spells makes it easier for them to be in a safe position where they can continuously use them and continuously poke them. And VCJ, they have a lineup that is not as good at closing the gap. At least some of the heroes struggle. But it's never easy to close the gap when they're sitting in their high ground, behind the tier 3, behind their axes. I'll go here to a point and I'll show you what I mean. VCJ are pushing our high ground. They're in quite a hefty lead. They have a few items on us, and we're only 3 heroes alive. They're gonna end up getting this barracks. The Dragon Knight dies for it here. And we're also gonna be killing a few more, or maybe just the Ench on the way out. BKB is used by Weaver. They managed to get the barracks. We can consider that a loss for ourselves. It would have been really nice to save it, but tough luck. The game is not looking too good. We do manage to get 2 kills for it, and we go straight to the Roche pit. We're gonna see that Anna manages to not just claim the Aegis, we also managed to get the last hit. They get a rather big Echo Slam. We were worried at first that the fight was gonna look really bad. We get the Aegis. Sadly, we're gonna end up using it here, and we're also gonna end up dying again on the PL. It could have been really good for us. In the end, with all the things adding up, it wasn't superb. PL ends up dying again, and now we're looking at losing maybe the top barracks. We do have really good heroes to defend the high ground with. All the main 3-1s are still alive. So we see a big issue for VTJ Storm that they keep getting poked down. We managed to kill the Shaker up, who stuck his head inside the base. And Yawar is trying to close the gap with a Blink Dagger on his Dragon Knight, but it's not really good enough because he's jumping into the tier 4s and the rest of his team can't connect. And if they do connect, it looks really bad. Like we're really deep into the base where a lot of things start going our way, like having 2 tier 4s, having full vision. This game, we end up holding. We hold the high ground not just twice, I think 3 times in total. Here's the cheese being popped by Ana, another thing that we got from the Roche pit, keeps him alive. But this game, we could have seen the end of it at the fight before if VTJ somehow managed to find a way to make this work for them, where they can either hit the barracks or close the gap, take the fight and destroy us. Killing us means that they get free reign to the barracks, even the tier 4s if they have the damage and time to do it. So I would still say in this game, we managed to hold our high ground really successfully, even though things could have gone even better. Killing 2 guys for a side of barracks, it can lead into a Roche fight or a straight up Roshan for you. It can give you the Aegis, can give you the cheese, which can then lead to another 1 fight. So a lot of good things can snowball from you winning that fight, even at your high ground. When you lose the side, lose the barracks, that doesn't come back. It doesn't matter. It even doesn't matter if you lose all 3 and you get mega creep. If you have the tools and your heroes can do it, you can hold mega creeps and still easily win. It's been done many times in Dota. Usually it's more uncommon than others, but it can be done. So I think it's important to always think positive at these high ground defenses. What can we do? Make them mess up. Abuse the fact that you have all this space that is yours. You have towers that protect you. You have full vision. And you also have your fountain right next to you. Not just for the buybacks, but for spending all your mana, going back, and then either TPing back or running straight back in, and you're back. You're back in the fight. You're back there where action happens. So one of the biggest objectives of all time in Dota has been Roche, and Roche has changed lately. He's always dropped the Aegis of the Immortal, and for a very long time he used to drop the cheese on the 2nd time only, and then that was it. The 3rd Roche would also have a cheese. Then they made the Refresher Shard first. Since a year ago, I think, from now, they added a one-time use Refresher Orb. It's an item that you can also purchase in the game, but this one is special. It doesn't cost mana and is only a one-time use. Basically lets you refresh all your items and all your spells. And as of very, very recently, they added something called Aghanim's Blessing, which is another consumable, and it just gives you the Aghanim's effect of your hero as a buff. It was very strange when it came out to me. I'd never thought that this was something that we'd be seeing in Dota. But there's still a lot to be explored. You also see today that people aren't super smart with how they use the Aegis and cheese. Most common procedure and common practice is that the most farmed core hero takes the Aegis and tries to make advantage of it. He's often a very big problem for the enemy team if he has a lot of net worth or he has a lot of items and an Aegis. It's usually the easiest way to approach it. Cheese, some heroes are really good with cheese. Cheese got really nerfed when Vessel entered the game, but a hero like Io can get double value out of it. The main problem that I've seen in the past when people use Aegis or try to use Aegis is that the hero that dies first in the fight, the hero that dies last in the fight is the hero with Aegis. This is probably the worst use of Aegis, as you want to keep that hero alive together with other heroes for as long as you can. Think about it, what hero is going to die first? If the carry is Sven and he has his ultimate, he's generally not considered a good Aegis carrier or an Aegis hero. If he dies, it's really bad, and it doesn't matter if he comes back. So think about it. If a hero is going to go in and die first, he probably wants that second life, or if he has some way to abuse all his mana, Leshrac Storm, classic Aegis carriers. I think the main thing is to try and visualize a bit. How is this Aegis going to be used? And go off of that, because often people just pick up the Aegis because they're the most farmed hero, or because some other hero feels like he's a support or an offlaner and he never should take it, but maybe he's the best Aegis carrier for your game. I think people don't think about it enough. A lot of people wonder when is a good time to push the barracks, like to go for that play of trying to take this huge objective. You're basically hitting a building when heroes are trying to fight you back, they're trying to kill you, and you're kind of hitting through this building or this objective that doesn't have a direct return without you actually killing it. How do you make the choice to go for the barracks over focusing on something else or stepping on that high ground? And there's no easy answer. There's truly no easy answer to this. It's always going to be case by case, but there are pointers to when it might be time for you as a lineup to go for it. Something that definitely speaks for when it's time is if you feel that your team fight is much superior, no matter where in the map a fight happens, you're going to win it. That means if you push and you're so confident in your fighting ability, worst case scenario, you don't get the barracks, but you do win the fight. Best case scenario, you might win the fight and take the barracks, or you simply just take the barracks. Big objective, generally something that you can just be happy with, depending on what happens on the map. If you're trading barracks, you might not be happy, but a barracks for a tower, a barracks for nothing, a barracks for a kill, usually is very worth it. Getting the mega creeps is something that you can often throw your bodies at, and manage to get and then win the game from there. Most of the time, that's the case. We have an example here that's a bit more special, a bit more unique, but something that you can see from our perspective how high ground defense we're much favored compared to LGD in this scenario. This is the game 3 of the winner bracket final, a very epic ending, a game that I feel very lucky to have played. And we have a very greedy core setup with our Spectre and our Arc Warden. LGD, I think, are feeling rather pressured. They don't want to play this game forever and ever. If this keeps going and we keep getting items, maybe it's going to be really hard for LGD to do anything in the game at a certain point. Regardless, they want to try and end. They're investing everything. They've invested all their buybacks. You want to go to their buyback status here. Everything has been used by LGD, everything that they have, and they're going straight for the throne. This is not common procedure. Usually you take one barracks, and you take the second, and then you go for the mega creeps. Sometimes you can go for the throne if you feel powerful enough, if you have the right heroes. Here, it seems like they lost track of what was going on. Our Shaker is about to respawn. We've been buying back with our Arc. He's been buying so much time, buying so much space. We still have our buyback up on him. He uses it. He buys as much time as he could for our Earthshaker. And now our Earthshaker is up. He has Echo Slam. We managed to kill their 2 strong cores who use their buybacks. And this is also something that was relevant back then. It's worse now, but you did have an added respawn time depending on what level you bought back in for the next time you die. This is why they're dead for 2 minutes. Them being dead for 2 minutes with our hero composition and everything, basically means that we're able to go throne. And this is the best outcome for us. This was the best high ground defense. We go in from high ground defense into ending the game. We win the game from it. It's a testament to, just be cool, be calm-headed, use your tools, use what you have. It's definitely a favorable position to be on the high ground defending than it is to be on the offense attacking. Just talking plain game mechanics. What can happen is if, one team gets really far ahead, then it might be time for you to push. How to make that decision? Well, it's really hard. It's really hard to say when the perfect time is, but what you want to do is figure out when somebody thinks that they're really strong or somebody even calls for the high ground and go for it. Put all the eggs in one basket. Because what happens if you half do it? This is when it really hurts, you know? You wanna really go for a play as a team, and the high ground play is a very critical and hard play to execute, so everybody needs to be on board for it. Same thing with when you're defending. We had that replay before against VGJ Storm. We were able to defend with 3 heroes. Maybe the best play, the most cool, calm, and team play we could have is for the 3 heroes to defend and 1 hero to be out on the map. These are also things that become possible when you get the high ground advantage. You might not need all your heroes in one place. So a few final pointers I could leave you guys with for how to make a successful high ground push happen. Figure out what your problems are. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 heroes who are keeping you at bay, maybe a Lina with high cast range or some annoying Tinker or Zeus. It might not make sense to push when this hero is alive, and you might not have the tools to kill him when he's in the base. But if you do have the tools to kill him when he's trying to defend high ground, this is you solving your problem right at the root. You're trying to push, he's coming to defend, and you manage to kill him right then and there. Sometimes it's a lot more tricky than that, and you might bang your head up against the wall if you just try and go for it blindly. You see it in every pub all the time. They walk in, they get baited even. There's this invisible line that you can draw where you're not allowed to cross it, and it can be many factors, like you're now at the point of no return because he can buy back and catch you. You can never TP out anymore because the guy with a stun is in range. And your team can no longer help you because if they walk high ground, they're going to catch the AoE spell. These things, there's a lot of factors. To get better, I think best thing is, study the replay, play around with the fog of war during the replay, because this is the thing, when you're pushing an enemy high ground, it's very hard to get vision in there. If you don't have the tools like a hero or a prophet TPing behind and warding in their base, you're not going to get vision, and they're kind of free to get the jump or plan the team fight in a way where you can't predict it or you can't visibly predict it. But if you play around with the fog of war a bit and try and think, what would I do in their position, or what are they most likely doing? You might be able to prevent your team or yourself from getting into a tricky or sticky situation. Or you might even just see a way to close the game out, a way to catch that tinker. Where is he going to be defending from? And here we are again for another episode. And this episode, we're going to be focusing a bit on items, your spells, and talents. What should you level up? What should you buy? And which talent should you go for? In essence, it's all the same answer that you can give. It is, what are you trying to do? What is your plan? What are you trying to accomplish? Because the way I view Dota and what I've learned from all my years of experience is that there's no such thing as one way of playing. There's a meta that often develops and a playstyle that often develops with a hero, a certain item build, and item transition, and certain timing that you try to hit together with a talent. But in the end, it's a personal thing. It's a personal idea that somebody has and brings to life. It can be very inspired by what somebody else did, but made his own. I've often done that. I've seen a guy play Naga Siren in a certain way, thought to myself, what if you did this, or what if you bought this, or you optimize something where you find optimizing, and you build from there. Often people just copy or think that there's only one way to play a hero, and then they see some guy who's doing really well and they think this must be it. There are so many ways to do it, and there's so many different things that you can do. And I'm going to be bringing you up a few examples, but I can't stress enough that it's such an individual thing. Dota allows you to solve problems through the items, through timings. It can be you being a certain level, having a spell level 4 together with another guy. Now the opponent can no longer play on the lane, can no longer play Dota, or you simply counter what they do by being ready and by having this one idea, this one timing that you're looking for. Something that has been very intriguing to me and very nice from the very beginning are the different approaches to, mainly items, but it's to the game. In this game, for example, and I'm playing Nyx, I view Midas as a very good Nyx item because it also helps me stay active. He has a feast ability that really likes attack speed, and then it also makes me a bit greedier as a hero. Like, gives me a farming tool. It allows me to put pressure on the enemy without actually being in their face and hitting them. But my thought process behind it is still that I can be active, I can be in their face. It lets me hit heroes, let me push towers, let me farm the big creeps. But moving forward from that, I'm looking at the face boost. The face boost supports everything else, makes me run faster while I hit fast. This simple idea is what I'm going for. Sometimes it's something completely different, but it's an overall very good build because I'm happy with either. Happy with fighting, happy farming. To try and look at what my teammates might be looking at, now it's a guessing game, I'm just analyzing. This OD went for a lot of the stat gain, a lot of the int, very classic for OD. Some of them go for the Midas as well, so that they can be happier not facing a hero. But this guy is trying to stay ahead, which means that the Ember, he can't come back to the mid lane, even if he had a pretty decent lane or whatever. When OD gets these items and he's here, there's no way that this Morph or Ember can get to the lane. Oh, I see. He's laning against the Morphling. But either way, same story. It's gonna be rough. Centaur, another thing that you see quite commonly nowadays. They go for the first tanky item. He opts for the Hood of Defiance. It's a pretty good Hood of Defiance game. This allows him to play in two ways again, just like my example with Nyx. He can play very aggressive. He can play in front of their tower. But this is also a very cool farming tool. Him having just HP regen together with the double edge and retaliate that he has, he can farm very efficiently, very fast. If he's ignored, he's going to get the next item much quicker than if he would have bought the Blink Dagger first. With Blink Dagger, he would not be looking forward, he'd be looking at the Blink Dagger. With the Hood, he's looking a bit more forward. He's looking at how to get the next item, potentially also just how to keep the pressure going, because this item does accomplish both. But Centaur is a hero that relies a lot on daggers, so he's definitely thinking about it. Something to note, he went for the max retaliate build in this game, to talk a bit about the spells. Some Centaurs I've seen have gone for a higher level Hoof Stomp. Hoof Stomp seems to be more of a kill potential, more threatening. If a guy wants to play the lane and you put the second point in Hoof Stomp, you do have a bit more kill potential. Some up for, the 2 levels in double edge. Same reason, you kind of going for either, more optimal farming or more optimal lane dominance. But yeah, he opted for the retaliate. He also managed to get to tier 1 really fast. Probably helped a lot. And the same thing goes for the talents. You have something in mind. It can be the tower, it can be the killing, it can be shutting down the guy, it can be having, a crazy amount of farm very short in the game. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, talents, spells, or items, you just build a plan and you work towards it. That's my philosophy anyway. And something that's worked for me for many years. With Dota having the new talent system, it's not that old. I think we got it 2 years ago. They added that whole different personalization layer to the game. A lot of talents break the game or make a spell completely different. And some people, they just play for that. They literally are thinking about when I get level 20 or when I get level 25, then this will happen. And then of course they think a bit about what happens before that point, but they're playing for this. Same way you can be playing for anything. I can be playing for when I get face boots and really think hard and do everything that I'm allowed to do once I hit those face boots. Of course the game keeps going, but my point is just you make a plan, you find something that you want to do, and you build towards it. Dota, again, like many other things, it has tools. It can help you tremendously. Dota Plus, for me, was a pretty cool investment for statistics. I'll show you. If I want to learn more about Lifestealer and what other people do with what talents they take, how they average in the stats or how they average in the picks, I can simply go through them like this. Something that we can already deduct is at level 20, more people go for the open wounds lifesteal than the evasion, and you see a huge discrepancy when you get to the higher tiers. And it could mean that the other one, if the less experienced or worse of a player you are, the more likely you are to take the open wounds. It can also just be a statistic for when Nyx hits level 20 and the game is over, and it more often happens in the lower bracket, well then you just go for the open wounds lifesteal. Some statistics you have to read into. They're not always 100% reliable or 100% true, but they are really nice for inspiration. You can always go here and see what is it that other people do on a certain hero, and give it some thought. You can even make friends with a hero spammer and ask him some questions. That's surely a good way. But internet and Dota Plus, it has a lot of interesting statistics. Something that is very thought motivating or thought inspiring. So for our next episode, we're going to be talking about a concept that's very old in Dota. It's called timings. I think timings might mean something different for everyone. So for me, all I can say is timings is when something changed for either lineup. Either lineup just became a lot stronger, stronger than the other, or something big happened for a hero that basically changed the state of the game. What's possible? It can be the Radiant's Lone Druid. If you fight it right now, just when he gets it, it's going to be a bad fight or a really hard fight. Most often, a game changes a lot when a BKB enters the hands of a hero. A typical hero being played this patch is Sven. Very strong hero. He's a strength hero that becomes really beefy, high armor, and a lot of HP. And what happens when you combine that with Black King Bar, he basically becomes immune. Nothing's going to kill him unless you have a very special lineup. And Alliance's lineup relies a lot on magic damage. So they have a giant problem with the Sven BKB, but they do have a way to play against it. They realized that he was about to get it in this game. I'm going to give Alliance the credit for that. And they kind of baited it or gave them the fight as soon as BKB was clicked. Sven jumped in, got one kill, he bought back. And now there's no Sven BKB, no Sven ulti. They will still manage to win this game, spoiler alert. But Alliance, I think, are talking about the right thing. They're not stronger in the fight, and you can kind of see by the way they're playing that they're trying to get around it. They're trying to get around the problem that they have, that Virtus Pro they're rolling off a timing that Alliance, they're not matching it. If they maybe had their BKB ready on Storm and Earth Spirit, they might have a way to fight this game. Just because they're going to hit another timing after. But yeah, the thing is, Virtus Pro, they hit some really good timings this game. Between Vlad's and Pipe, a lot of things became possible for them. Towers and teamfight, main two, and they used it. Something that you see very often nowadays is a misconception. It comes from the way games are often being casted and what people focus on, and it's this net worth graph. We see it here. Even though it really never dipped below or above 10K for anyone until now, it still felt like Virtus Pro were in complete control at this point in the game when Alliance were ahead in gold and in XP. And obviously they weren't. They weren't ahead in the game. The game was really hard for them. It was hard to play in multiple aspects. They couldn't split push, they couldn't fight, and they had a hard time getting out of the map. And that is the power of a timing from Virtus Pro. What happens when they see one and then they seize it? And yeah, it's also a testament to Alliance realizing that Virtus Pro are on their timing. That the timing kind of favors them. They still have to play the game, even though Virtus Pro is playing really well. Alliance, they're taking these steps to fix the problem that they're now facing, the timing that they're now facing. So something else that you can define as a timing or just call a timing, it's anytime a hero with a strong ultimate hits level 6, it's a small timing. It's basically you get a window where you having this ability makes you stronger in the game or gives you a range of plays. And Queen of Pain is one of those heroes. She has a very strong ultimate. This time they kind of gave the play to her by going on the Queen of Pain. But her having this allows for them to connect mid, to really look to get more, just because they feel so much stronger. The same thing with the Ravage. We saw them both being used here in the mid lane. Is another timing. It means for a certain amount of time in the game, they're going to be ahead or they're going to have this possible play that is just very favorable if they manage to get it off. Something that a lot of people look at nowadays are the talents. Talents together with spells. I mean, the ultimate is basically just another spell, right? That gives you the timing. The same way talents gives you timings now. It's a very interesting system. It's not really fair. Not every hero has the coolest or best talents. But something that we see quite commonly is Storm. Storm managing to get level 25 and taking the Remnant talent. Right now we have a bit of a mishap in the replay, but Storm's level 25 talent basically lets him shoot out a bunch of remnants during his ultimate, and it's so strong and it's even worth playing for. Granted, that is a very late timing. Often people look at something that's earlier because the earlier you see something, the better it kind of is, the safer it is. Whenever you go to level 25 territory, that's when the game gets very very shaky. So my advice to anyone who tries to get a better understanding of timings or more familiar with it is you look at what people do, especially pro players, what they do once they get a certain level or a certain item. You see a shift in play style or a shift in mentality. A very common one is people playing Monkey King and buying Echo Saber. As soon as they get the Echo Saber, you see that they're actively looking for something. That means that they feel stronger. Sometimes what can happen is you feel like you're wasting your timing, you're playing wrong, like you buy that Black King bar and you should take a fight and you should try to win that fight, but nothing's happening on the map and no fight is being given to you. Again, replays are great. You kind of get to see things from a different perspective, maybe from your teammates' perspective, why they couldn't help you, why was it so hard to force the fight, or why was it so scary. And also, the classic one, now we have a Lone Druid example again in front of us. We want to buy Radiance on Lone Druid. Almost every Lone Druid player wants to buy Radiance and use that timing. That means you push it to the limit. You get this Radiance, you go smoke, you take 2 towers, you win a fight. You try and make these things happen. Very often is quite wasted, especially in these public games when it's hard to coordinate and really hard to make people understand that I'm stronger right now, I really want to use it. But yeah, when you feel strong in Dota, when you feel strong on the map, that is your instinct telling you, use it, go for it, try and push it to the limit. My recommendation is, yeah, rather fail having tried than not failing and not trying at all. Here again for another episode. This time we'll be talking a bit about late game, the late game aspect of Dota, what happens in the later stages. What's important to note about late game Dota, what it was in the past, it's much different from what it is now. Much fewer games get past 40 minutes. I think the average long game time nowadays is between 40 and 50. Back in the day, we could have 2-hour long games. We still can see those games today, maybe with some techies being in it, but it's a lot more rare. Dota over the last many patches, over the last couple of years, have been trying to make the game much more unstable when it gets to the later stages. Main thing that they did was they added these talents. A lot of the talents break the game. It adds a whole nother dimension to it. A hero gets so strong that, well, fights are either going to be forced and somebody's going to win, or that hero might just take over in a certain sense, or feel like, taking over. A general thing you say about the late game is that it's very unstable. As a good team, as a team that feels very confident in their Dota ability, never really want to go late game. They'll still feel confident and comfortable being there, but you don't really want to go there just from the nature of the game, how quickly things happen. Heroes die much faster. Heroes can solo kill, a core in no time, given the right condition and the right items and stuff. Buildings start dying through backdoor, which kind of takes away a security. If you're a team that's doing really well, you're 20,000 gold ahead, but they're able to take your throne in some seconds, even through backdoor. It just makes for a very unstable game. It's a position that can be very hectic and chaotic. But that being said, it's still very important to try and stay cool, calm, and collected, trying to stay positive and seeing the game for what it is. I have an example of one of my public games. I played it with OD Pixel the other day. It's one of the few games I had that actually made it to an hour. And it kind of probably went to an hour because of how we played, but that's the nature of Dota. Sometimes you push it too far, you make a mistake. I think we had a failed high ground push this game, and it became a very chaotic game. But I got a chance to play Invoker, and if you look here, we see Invoker's level 25 talent and also level 20 talent. They're quite game changing. I'm a big fan of what they did to the game when they added this talent system, and for some of the talents. Some are a bit boring, but some are super interesting and game changing. Cataclysm and the Tornado cooldown really makes this a different hero. It goes from being a normal Invoker to a team fight wrecker, a carry bully. The carry, he spends half the time spinning in some tornado in the air, and with the Cataclysm, in this game we had a Void. The Cataclysm threatens the one shot, there's nothing you can do about it. More things to mention, 2 runes start spawning at 40 minutes. It's also kind of new in the game. It just makes for more chaos, more wild stuff, heroes that just explode, best word I have, like things just happen around the map that you never really saw in Dota for many years. Combining with the Roshan dropping these refresher shards and Aghanim's synths, and you can now also purchase an Aghanim's recipe that allows you to just consume it, so it's no longer in your inventory. They made Teleport have his own inventory slot, so now you have another item. Dota is trying to make games not last over an hour, but it will still happen on occasion. But how do we become better at the late game? How do we not panic or lose our cool, lose our calm? My biggest recommendation, my biggest tip, would be to stay confident in your late game ability. Oftentimes, teams get very scared and timid because things happen so fast. You're afraid to stick your neck out of the base just because they have the one-shot ability on you. Instead of looking at how you can die super fast, I think it's still very important, no matter what stage of the game you are, to look at what you can do really fast. Maybe you can do the same to them. It's like if 2 teams are hesitant, both are afraid to pull the trigger first or take the first shot. The team that does it, the team that has the confidence and belief, they'll win more than they'll lose. They'll do better. But there's so many factors that start coming into play. Not just the talents, not just the big items. We have more catapults spawning, the creep waves are getting bigger, and something very noticeable or notable is that the heroes, they take so much longer to respawn. For each level you get in Dota, when you die, or if you die, the longer it's going to take to respawn. Once you hit that level 25, and if you die having used a buyback whenever ago, you're going to have a 120-second cooldown, respawn. And that's 2 minutes. 2 minutes in the late game when buildings are dying through backdoor, when buildings are dying super fast. Like I said, it's a place that most really good teams or good players don't really want to be at because it's less secure, but it's also fun. Late game Dota is also fun. It's some of the things that really gave me gray hairs, made me pull it out, and really got my heart going. But we'll see if we get to see more of it at TI9. I think it's going to be less and less, comparing it to the other years. But it's definitely still going to happen. Techies also seems to be becoming a hero, and part of what makes games long. The same thing with the game that I'm displaying here, where I played Invoker, is this high ground defense. How long can they hold it? Can they then get out on the map after they hold the high ground? Here we have an anti-mage and an Ember, very elusive heroes. They can usually always get out on the map. And therefore, yeah, we slipped up once or twice, and the game then extends for 10 more minutes, and a whole different set of rules and laws apply for this stage of the game. Towers don't get more HP, they don't get more armor. Roshan does become stronger over time, but that's the only objective. Things just seem to blow up. So what approach should you take thinking that you are about to go into a late game scenario or that this game might drag on? Well, a scenario you don't really want to find yourself in is you have too many of these small items. It's a really bad feeling when you're getting later into the game, but because you have all these small items and you feel like you want to upgrade to travel boots or upgrade to another big item, you have a period of time where your hero might just become weaker instead of becoming stronger when you give in more gold and XP. And it's something that we've actually seen quite often. Players, they think so much about, the game right ahead of them or the stage of the game that they're in, that they buy these small items and they don't think about the bigger items. If you think that the game is going to drag on, try and think about what item you want to have for this stage. Usually it's a big item, I would recommend. And yeah, the big thing is definitely the confidence you have in your ability for late game. Don't become timid, don't become shy in your initiations. Just believe in your ability to scale as well. If you believe in your ability to scale, Dota will give you give you the tools to become big and scary late game through items or through a play style. The professional teams that often falter in the late game, they're the ones that play very timid. The ones that have a scary late game, or the ones you don't want to go against, are the ones who feel comfortable in there, I guess, losing. They're not scared of going head first and dying and potentially losing. They do it because they don't see how it goes wrong. I think that mentality is much healthier than thinking about, oh, this is not going to work. I'm going to be dead for 2 minutes. Go in and get the kill that you know that you can get. Think about your buyback, of course. If you're 1 minute away from having your buyback ready and you might lose the game, well, it's a big risk that you might be taking, that you won't be taking in 1 minute. At least you'll have a buffer. Try still to think ahead when you're in the late game about the Roshan respawning. Bounty runes are still worth a lot. You might be 5 or 6 slaughtered, but your teammates might not be. If you get to that position where you don't want to trade a single item, you can even help your team by buying the consumables, buying the wards, buying the gem, using that resource that you can't use any other way. I think most important, be confident. So if you do find yourself in a late game Dota game and is your job to be handling the vision or counter vision for that matter, it's a whole different game when all the towers are dead and people are getting jumped and one-shotted. What kind of wards you have and what kind of vision that the enemy have, it matters so much more than having vision on a guy on the lane. Like a typical lane ward mid at 5 minutes, all it does is it helps you get some last hits or foresee a few things happening. A ward late game can mean the difference between you getting jumped, getting nothing off, or you getting the jump and the other guy getting nothing off.